Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And that PlayStation showcase just took place where they announced some pretty major games there. Insomniac continues to show why they're one of the best acquisitions made, not just from PlayStation, but really out of any company in recent years. That acquisition continues to look like a steal, as not only did they talk about Spider-Man 2 today, we'll go over that in a little bit, but also they announced a brand new game as well. Yeah. Insomniac is on absolute fire right now, but really this PlayStation event as a whole, there was quite a bit of announcements here, and if I'm counting this correct, they actually talked about 19 different games. Now, we're not going to talk about every single game in detail, but what I will do is we're going to talk about some of the bigger games, and then here at the end, I will go over each individual announcement they made, and if they gave a release date, I will let you know about that. With that in mind, though, of course, I do cover the entire game industry, and a few interesting things did happen today, including some Xbox news as well as a big Nintendo rumor that's going around right now. So make sure to stay tuned for all of that. With all that said, though, let's just go and get right into the video, starting off with a big remake that PlayStation had to announce at that showcase. And this one was rumored earlier this year, but now it's official. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is officially getting a remake. Now, this one is incredibly exciting for actually a couple of different reasons. One, this game is widely considered to be one of the better Star Wars games. It really sits right up there at the top. I think when you think about good Star Wars games, Knights of the Old Republic is always going to pop up there. You have Jedi Fallen Order, and you have a few others, but yeah, Knights of the Old Republic is definitely one of the better Star Wars games. But beyond that, this is just a really good RPG. This game was originally developed by BioWare. Before there was Mass Effect, there was Knights of the Old Republic, and you know, back then they were considered to be one of the better RPG developers as a whole. So I think even if you don't necessarily like the Star Wars IP, Knights of the Old Republic remake is still a game that you might want to pay attention to, especially if you are just an RPG fan. Now, this game, however, is being remade by Aspyr and not BioWare, and this is kind of where this announcement got a little bit more confusing. They did say that this game was specifically remade for the PlayStation 5, and it did show the PlayStation 5 Studios logo as well, and this led to a lot of questioning on whether or not this game is exclusive or not. Well, we did get a confirmation after the event. Sony did post a PlayStation blog after the event revealing that this particular game is a console launch exclusive. In other words, this is a timed exclusive. Now, as for how long, that remains to be seen, but one thing I do know is that Knights of the Old Republic fans out there, well, you definitely have something to look forward to. That was one trend when it comes to this event, though, because Sony did announce several big movie-related IP here, all Disney-related for that matter, which kind of shows you their relationship right now. But yes, Insomniac Games had two games to announce here, both being Marvel-related. Now, the first of which isn't necessarily a big surprise. It is Spider-Man 2. Of course, we've been waiting for this game for a while because Spider-Man was one of the best games available on the PlayStation 4. So without a doubt, I mean, you know, fans are really excited for Spider-Man 2. I mean, of course, you do have Miles Morales, which, you know, it was a good game and everything, but it wasn't really a full-on sequel, and I mean, it almost played out like an expansion in a lot of ways. But here with the full sequel, not only do we have a release window now, but we also got to see one of the characters that are going to be making their debut here, and this one was very exciting, being Venom. Yeah, Venom is one of the most iconic villains in the Spider-Man universe, and to see both Peter Parker and Miles Morales face off against Venom on a PlayStation 5, that is going to be incredibly exciting. I don't think that they could have announced a villain that would have brought much more hype than Venom. I think this is also a really smart move by Sony because they do have the Venom movies as well. This could actually bring more interest to those movies, and vice versa. Those movies can bring more interest to this game. So, very smart move by Sony right here. Nonetheless, I know my excitement definitely went way up for Spider-Man 2 knowing that Venom is going to be in this game. Now, unfortunately, it's not going to be releasing in 2022. I know some fans out there were kind of hoping that would be the case, but actually it's set for 2023. Still a little ways away, but you know, good games, they take a while to make, and what we do know about Insomniac Games is they know how to make good games. They did, however, mention another game here, as I mentioned before, and this one was a really big surprise. Yeah, out of nowhere, they announced a new Wolverine game. Yeah, the X-Men's Wolverine. I was not expecting that at all, but I guess Insomniac Games, you know, they proved that they can make a good Marvel-related game, and, well, Marvel came back and gave them another IP to work with, and this time with Wolverine. Now, I'm not necessarily a big X-Men fan or anything like that, but I do know that there's a lot of X-Men fans out there, and if you are, again, you know, Insomniac is a really good developer, and I think by this point, without a doubt, Insomniac is just kind of flexing by this point. I mean, if you look at things, since the PlayStation 5 launched, they've released Miles Morales, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, both of those turned out to be good games, and now not only do they have Spider-Man 2 in development, but they also have Wolverine. I mean, I have to say that Insomniac Games by this point is turning out to be one of the best acquisitions that I've seen in gaming as a whole, especially for the price that Sony got them. I mean, it is turning out to be an absolute steal. Now, they also had several updates for games that we already knew about, but I mean, I think with some of these games, they really showed out and showed why you need to be so excited. And I think Forspoken is one of those games. Forspoken, of course, is being developed by Illumina Studio, which, of course, worked on Final Fantasy 15. This is a new IP, though, and I'm actually really interested to see what they do with this game. Because, you know, previously, I mean, we just knew the talent that was working on this game. We didn't really know much else about it, but here at this event, they revealed a lot more about this game. And what I will say is that this game isn't quite what I was expecting. I do think that the premise and the combat looks really interesting. The combat's very flashy and it has lots of different superhero and supernatural type of abilities. It looks like it's going to be a very action-driven, fun game. I'm really impressed with the overall visuals and just the playstyle in general. But with the premise, that's where I find it even more interesting to an extent, because I think the character seems like she's going to be a very likable character. But interestingly enough, and this is what I wasn't expecting, the protagonist is actually a character from modern day times, and then she somehow gets transported into a completely different universe as we're seeing here. Now, we've seen movies, books, and shows have this type of premise, but I do like stories like this, and you know, I really think the gameplay looks excellent in this game, and it's probably one of the more interesting PlayStation 5 games right now, in my opinion. And the good news is that we're not going to have to wait overly long for this game. Forspoken is set for a spring 2022 release. Now, another game that I thought really stood out here was Project Eve. We've actually talked about this game on the channel multiple times in the past because this is a game that I've had my eye on for quite a while. This game is actually being developed by a Korean studio, and it's inspired by Nier Automata. So if you are noticing some similarities between Nier Automata and Project Eve, there's actually a good reason for that, and you know what? That's a good game to take inspiration from. As you all have heard me continuously say on this channel, Nier Automata, in my opinion, is an absolute masterpiece. And from what I've been seeing with Project Eve, this game, at the very least, looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Visually, it's a very attractive game. It's got some interesting enemies, to say the least. I mean, there's one that's like tries to saw her in half with his head. It's pretty crazy, and you can definitely see that it has some over-the-top action-based combat. I really think Project Eve is looking good so far. Now, we're going to talk about a couple more games here, one being, of course, God of War Ragnarok. This is the game that you all voted as being your most anticipated gameplay reveal for the PlayStation Showcase, and thankfully, they did give us that gameplay reveal today. And I mean, if you liked the God of War reboot, you're more than likely going to like what you saw today, because it really seems like it's taking everything that first game had and is just kind of running with it. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen in this trailer, but the first thing that you're probably going to notice when it comes to this trailer is that it is set several years after the first game. You can clearly hear how Atreus' voice has changed since the first game. He is a little bit older now, and he's becoming more of a teenager by this point. In fact, Atreus is actually looking for his true heritage in this game, and that's really going to be where the story takes place. This game, of course, is based off Norse mythology, and they're really going to lean into that with this game. And in fact, the main antagonists in this game are Thor and then Freya. And no, you did not hear that wrong. Yes, Thor is going to be a main antagonist when it comes to this game, and that is going to be very entertaining. Very excited to see how Kratos deals with Thor in this game, and this is going to be a lot of fun. Very happy to see the direction that they're taking with the sequel for God of War. Now, in terms of gameplay, it's about what you would expect. It looks very similar to the first game. They say it does have new runes and abilities, and you actually have all 9 realms in this game. So, I mean, there's a lot that you could do with that. And really, I would even kind of say that the visuals are kind of similar to the first game. Now, the first game I thought looked good, but I don't think that it was as big of a visual upgrade as I was maybe expecting. It's kind of hard to tell right now because I'm basing this off of the streamed video. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the uploaded 4K video whenever I get the chance. But based off the stream that I saw, I didn't see a major visual upgrade here or anything like that. But in terms of gameplay and story, I think this game looks excellent. And even in visuals, I thought the first game looked really good. And of course, you know, the second game, it looks really good as well, even if it's not necessarily a major improvement based off the stream that they showed at the event. Let me know what you thought about God of War at this event, though. Was you happy with what you saw, and are you excited to see Thor in God of War? Now, one other announcement that they made here, which I was kind of surprised that they decided to show this at the PlayStation Showcase, but I think this just kind of shows you just how committed PlayStation is to PC right now. Yes, they did announce that both Uncharted 4 as well as Uncharted Lost Legacy is heading to PC. Now, this is also going to be getting a PlayStation 5 remaster, but yes, these games will be available on PC. Now, we kind of already knew that Uncharted 4 was going to be heading over to PC based off a report earlier this year, but, you know, Uncharted Lost Legacy, that's new information here. Now, I personally think that they still need to bring over the original Uncharted trilogy as well, because all these games follow a specific story, but nonetheless, I mean, Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy coming over to PC, that is absolutely huge. Uncharted is one of Sony's biggest and most recognizable franchises without a doubt, and really, it's one of the most impactful games in Sony's lineup as well. I mean, if you think about it, Uncharted is kind of what got Sony started on making all of these cinematic style of games. So again, seeing them bring these games over to PC, I just think it kind of shows PlayStation's commitment to PC, and especially with them announcing this at the PlayStation Showcase. I kind of figured they would just kind of announce this on a PlayStation blog or something, but they showed this at their biggest showcase of the entire year. I think that's very telling on PlayStation's commitment to PC. If it wasn't already evident enough, do expect more of these PlayStation PC games to come in the future. But yeah, those are the games that really stood out to me. I think there's a lot to be excited for, and I think just overall, I thought this was a very well put together event. There was a lot of big announcements, and I mean, I didn't even get to go over every single thing that I really wanted to talk about today, but to just kind of wrap things up, I'm going to go ahead and go down a list of some of the games that they did announce today alongside their release dates. So you have Tiny Tina's Wonderland set for March 25th. Forspoken has a spring 2022 release window. Rainbow Six Extraction is January 2022. Alan Wake Remastered has an October 5th release. Grand Theft Auto 5 for the PlayStation 5 got delayed to March of 2022. Guardians of the Galaxy is October 26th. Blood Hunt is set for 2021. Deathloop surprisingly popped up here once again, and that one is coming out in just a few days, September 14th. You have Gran Turismo 7. They did give an official release date for that one being March 4th, 2022. That's big news right there. And of course, you have Spider-Man 2 set for 2023. Unfortunately, we did not get a release date here for God of War Ragnarok. That is disappointing, but at least that game is looking good. And just overall, I thought this was a good, well put together event. Moving on, though, we do need to talk about some potentially really big news for the Nintendo Switch. So what's happening right now is that currently there is a new report out from Nintendo Alerts that Nintendo is set to drop the price over in France for the Nintendo Switch. And this is actually a pretty significant drop. According to them, the price will be dropping from 329 euros down to 270 euros on Monday, September 13th. And like I said, that's a pretty nice little drop. If the same thing happens in the North American market, that means it'll go from $300 down to $250. With that in mind, though, we're currently not hearing about a price drop in any other region as of this moment, but, at the same time, the Nintendo Switch has been out for 4 years, and it's yet to receive a price drop. So maybe with the Nintendo Switch OLED coming out next month on October 8th, maybe it is the perfect time to drop the price for that original Nintendo Switch. Though I have to say that would make the Switch OLED look a little bit too pricey at the same time, being set at $350, and then you have the original Switch at $250. I feel like that would make the Switch OLED a little bit more of a tough sell, but assuming this does become official, this could end up just being a price cut over in France. We'll kind of see how this one plays out, but if this is an official price drop worldwide, getting a Nintendo Switch at $250, that's a pretty good price. Now, there's also some speculation that maybe Nintendo tries to phase out that original Switch in favor for the Switch OLED, and that actually is possible as well. But I think that if they do something like that, hopefully they would drop that OLED to $300 rather than keeping it at that $350 price. Fans already aren't exactly happy with that $350 price tag, so I'd really like to see how Nintendo deals with all that. On to the final topic of the day, though, and I will make this one quick, but it looks like Tales of Arise for Xbox will not utilize Smart Delivery. Now, Smart Delivery is this fantastic service where it doesn't matter which console you buy a specific game for, it's just going to work on whichever platform you put it into, whether that be the Xbox One or the Xbox Series. It just knows and works. Fantastic service, but unfortunately, Tales of Arise does not utilize this feature. However, they do have a solution to this, which is really interesting because I don't think that I've seen a game launch this way this generation. But if you buy the physical version of Tales of Arise for Xbox, it will actually come with 2 discs. Now, from what I'm seeing here, this does not mean that you have to swap discs in and out as you're playing the game, but rather one is the Xbox One version and then the other one is the Xbox Series. You do have to use both discs to install Tales of Arise, but after that, you only have to then use one disc. And the reason they do that is so you can't just install the Xbox Series version and then go out and sell the Xbox One disc. It doesn't quite work that way, but this is definitely an interesting workaround because, yes, you do have 2 completely separate discs for the game. Now, the way the digital version works is that when you download that game, you can actually choose which version to install. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting way to release Tales of Arise on Xbox, but, this game still is looking absolutely excellent and cannot wait to play it myself when it releases tomorrow. And onto the poll of the day, I asked you all, do you think Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5 will get a mid-generation refresh this generation? And I think that this one is a pretty easy conclusion to make, with 68% of you saying, yes, that will indeed happen. And the reason I asked this is because, yes, there was a rumor that popped up yesterday that Sony will launch a PlayStation 5 Pro in 2023 or even possibly 2024. I don't really think that that's much of a leak, but rather an easy prediction that can be passed off as a leak. So as I said yesterday, I don't really think that it would be overly surprising if Xbox or PlayStation announced a Pro model sometime this generation, especially right around 2023 and 2024. That follows a very similar timeline as we saw last generation with the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. And for that matter, we always kind of get newer models throughout the generation. No, they might not always be a big upgrade like the PlayStation 4 Pro or the Xbox One X, but, you take a look at the Xbox 360, you had the Elite model, you had the PlayStation 3, you had the PlayStation 3 Slim. You look at the Nintendo 3DS, and my goodness, that thing had like 7 different models. You had the 2DS, the new 2DS XL, the new 3DS XL, and you kind of see where I'm going with all this. Even with the Nintendo Switch, you have that OLED model coming out next month in October. So yeah, I think it's inevitable that we get a newer model sometime this generation, and very possibly in 2023 or 2024. Like I said, I think it's a pretty easy prediction to make. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.